Afia is going to be our talker today, but I will go through the introductory slides first. Did I say your name right? Is that where you put the accents in it, Afia?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, what a marvelous thing. Okay, cool. Introductory slides. Where am I? Let me make that a little smaller so I can click and see. Cool. Welcome to Microsoft Student Accelerator. For those of you that are new to it or have not seen me sharing about myself first, this new breakpoint is my web show that I do for Microsoft in Asia. On Thursday next week, I have Scott Hunter as my guest in the show. Scott Hunter is the VP of Developer Experience. So he's normally in the US, but I found him when I was in Norway last month and got him to sit down and do this episode with me. So I would love it if you would sign up for that. In fact, I'm not sure whether his registration is appearing on that page yet or not. I will paste the actual registration to his page just in case it's not on the main page yet. But on that main page, you can sign up for like not a million, I don't know. You can sign up for all the season 3 episodes that I was hosting, and we're now starting season 4, which is Scott Hunter. Scott is going to talk about .NET Aspire. So it's a really, really cool thing that makes it a lot easier to be a developer in a world where cloud and infrastructure and everything else have made things very complicated, and you need to think about more stuff than your code. So Aspire means you don't have to think about more than your code. So it's a very cool sort of fireside chat episode. So I hope you will join us for that next week, Thursday morning. Okay, Student Accelerator, what we are focused on is helping you certify, helping you build, and helping you connect. For Certify, this year I'm super focused on sharing about the applied skills because they are entirely free. The learning path is free. The labs that you do in the learning path are free. The assessment lab that you do at the end of the learning path is free, and you get a free certificate. The difference between certifications and applied skills is, oh, do you know what? I should really move to the next slide. Is that applied skills demonstrate
Michelle, we can't
that
see your screen.
You can't see my screen. So I'm totally clicking through stuff and I haven't shared my screen. That is not helpful to you all, is it? There we go. Let me go back one. So this is the new breakpoint link. I will post that in the chat, and I will post the one to the exact episode. Certify, build, connect. Yes. Difference between applied skills and certifications is the applied skills demonstrate you can use the tools. The certifications demonstrate that you have knowledge and understanding across the entire learning stack. So they are both really good things to get. But if you don't want to spend any money, then do the applied skills because those are absolutely free. If you don't mind spending a bit of money, you can get discounted certification vouchers through the Student Hub, which I will show you in a minute. These applied skills are brand new. It's been out about 6 months. So they add more and more all the time. So you can definitely find some aligned to what you are interested in doing. They are quite new, so if you have a problem when you're doing your assessment lab, do not think, oh, it's me, I'm doing it all wrong, I'm stupid. You're not at all stupid. You are, in fact, very smart because you are doing these applied skills. It can be that because they are so new, they haven't correctly yet got all the bugs fixed, or maybe too many people are trying to do it at the same time and they're not used to preparing to scale that yet. So don't take it personally. And indeed, you don't need to worry, because if you do fail the exam or it crashes or any other thing, you can retake it again 72 hours later, always for free. So that's why I'm such a big fan of those this year. That's what the certificate looks like on my, and I've, attached that on my LinkedIn profile. So, it has a credential number. It is a real certificate. So it looks exactly the same, in fact, or pretty similar to what the, what the certification ones look like, except this is free and the other ones are a little bit. Yeah, I was going to say. So I did this one, the AI language one, without any problem at all. Did it, passed first time, didn't even read the whole learning path, and I passed it, and that was good. I did another one, which was the AI vision one, which I have literally been I have been demonstrating AI vision at conferences for the past year. I have been, I know that subject really, really well, and I have failed it 3 times. I do not know if it's because the way I want to do the lab is not the way they want me to do it. Like I haven't aligned fully to the learning path. Sometimes vendor certifications are a bit like that. They want you to prove you can do it exactly as they think it should be done, not necessarily in all the ways it can be done. It could also have been because I was doing it at Christmas and everyone else was trying to do them at Christmas, and it might have just been crashing because too many people were trying. But anyway, this one I have passed, the vision one I haven't, and this generative AI one I also haven't. However, and that's because there's a lot of code in there and you need to focus when you're doing code, and I have not been super focused up until this point because it's been a busy year, so I will try that again now that it's quiet. However, in that learning path, they have a bunch of labs, which if you do not have access to Azure OpenAI, which you might not because you need to apply for it and you might not always be granted it, then you cannot do those sandbox labs. I have done each of those labs and recorded myself doing them, and in them I have also attached the learning path and the instructions for the lab. So even if you cannot do the lab because you don't have access to it, you can definitely see me doing it, see all the steps, and match that to the instructions in the lab. The exam at the end, so the certification lab at the end, does not require you to have your own subscription with Azure OpenAI Access. They give you a dummy ID to do the assessment lab. So you can absolutely do the learning path, you can watch the labs, and you can do the assessment, no problem. And that one, of course, is probably the hottest one to get right now because everyone is talking about generative AI. Okay, there we go. There is also a really nice course that another Microsoft certified trainer has recorded, and hers is much more professional than mine, talking you through all of the concepts as well. So if you would rather have the course taught to you rather than working your way through the learning path, you can see it here. That's the short link at the bottom. Also, whenever you go to the Student Hub page, so that link at the bottom, you can also find that very easily by just typing Microsoft Learn Student Hub into a web browser, and it will find it for you. They often put any special offers or any things you should sign up for at the moment at the top of the page, like this GitHub certification thing. When they had that up at the start in April, you could get some free exam vouchers for it, but really only the first people that were signing up. Obviously, they might not be there now because they might have all been used up, but always look for whatever you see at the top of the page and sign up for whatever is up there, because there are often ways to get free exam vouchers and free offers by doing that. We will be coming out with some in-person meetup events this quarter, so probably in August or September. You should see events at your local office. Probably not all of the offices, as I do not find Microsoft volunteers at all of my offices, but I would expect Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, to definitely do it. And actually definitely Canberra as well, because I have a marvelous lady there who is super enthusiastic. I'm still looking for someone for Adelaide, I think, and Brisbane maybe. Actually, Brisbane maybe. I might be able to find someone for there. So we will see. Keep your fingers crossed if you're in those places. Here we go. And it's super fun. Yes, we have an event. They will be like, maybe it's a panel like this. Maybe it's someone teaching you something. Maybe it's a class. Maybe it's like speed networking. But they're great things to come along to. And you probably get a t-shirt while stocks last. And you get to network with other students, and you get to network with Microsoft people, and sometimes MVPs. MVPs are what we call Microsoft most valued professionals, and they work for other companies, not Microsoft, but Microsoft partners, and they are the best of the best. They are incredible trainers, conference speakers, and people who can, deliver stuff out in our customers. And they are amazing, inspirational people to meet. Okay, what else have we got? Oh, my YouTube channel has a bunch of playlists around Microsoft Student Accelerator. So if you miss any of these or you miss any of the workshops, you can follow my YouTube, and you can find all of the recordings on there. I am this short of 500 subscribers on my YouTube. So I would really love it if everyone who is not subscribed would click subscribe so that I could get above that 500 mark, because it's been like a year now that I can see 500, but I do not reach it. And I would just feel like really I'm doing something. If you do that for me, I would love it. Thank you. Student Learn Ambassadors. This is also another good thing this year. So previously, if you applied to become a Microsoft Student Learn Ambassador, only 30% of the people were accepted into that. Now, everyone will be accepted. If you apply, you will be accepted. And then you can just work your way up through the levels. So they have like alpha, beta, gold. I think they might have one more level. Maybe when you begin, you are not yet alpha. You're just like starter level or something. And then you progress through the levels by doing stuff, by getting a certification, by following some things, and maybe like running an event at a group. So for example, like what Afia is doing right now, that would count towards her progressing, because she is in fact speaking at an event, or she will be when I stop speaking. So that's you progress through, and people who become gold ambassadors, it really sets you up for being either an MVP after you finish and you start working. Like you would already be doing those same behaviors, i.e. producing content, being leaders in your community, having an in-depth understanding of the Microsoft ecosphere. So all of that training and everything sort of sets you up for being like a leader in your field, which then makes it easier for you to get jobs, makes it easier for you to get into Microsoft or into a Microsoft partner, or indeed into a competitor, whatever it is that you are interested in doing. Leveling up and showing how you are better, differentiated from your peers, is always a good thing. So definitely recommend Microsoft Learn Student Ambassadors. It's a global program, and so you will get additional learning to what you get with us. Oh, maybe Michael, you wanna withdraw it and put it in again, because maybe it's kind of stuck in the old and not new. Maybe just try it again, because if you can't, if somehow it doesn't let you do that, I think it will let you do that, but if it doesn't, message me again, and I'll see if I can find who's at the other end. Yeah, when they switch systems, it can be a little bit cumbersome. Well, actually, as you know, all of our back-end systems can be a bit cumbersome. Thank goodness that's not the same for our front-end ones. Okay, so this is the Student Hub, what it kind of looks like. You have a lot of knowledge on there, a lot of learning on there, and you have a lot of free benefits. So your Azure for Students is like $100 US that you can use to build stuff on Azure. It should absolutely, yeah, I know. And that system is absolutely, is absolutely requires you to have a lot of patience. Azure for Students, $100 US. That should easily last you the year. The reason I say it should last you the year is if you follow any learning path, at the end of the learning path, they do generally remind you to delete all your resources, to shut everything down and delete them. I know that the first time you build something, you want to keep it forever because it's your baby, but cloud babies are very greedy and they will eat all of your money. So do not do that while you are learning. Just video yourself building your first thing, like video yourself doing the first tutorial and put that on your YouTube channel. That'll be your content creation, and that will help other students following behind you how to follow the same tutorial, how to build what you've built, and then delete your cloud baby because otherwise it will eat all your cloud voucher. There are plenty of things on there that are free, so that have free tiers. So for example, my website is built with an Azure Static Web App and using a free tier. But if I want to have like multiple web applications that I have built, then I have to start using a paid tier. Azure Static Web Apps are still really cheap, so I've got a load of them, and I probably spend $6 a month on that. So some things are cheap. Virtual machines, those are not cheap. If you leave those running, they will eat the whole thing. And also things that are a subscription as opposed to pay for it. Student Hub, you shouldn't have to sign up for. The thing in the corner there that is your profile, that's Microsoft Learn, and that will track you, your studying level and how many things you've done. So, and on that, for the Student Learn thing, I should say, use your personal, so your Hotmail, your Gmail, your Outlook.com account to set up your primary Microsoft Learn account. And then when you have that all set up in your profile, you can go in and add additional email addresses. So you can add your student email account in there as well, because you need your student one in order to get discounts. But you don't want your primary one to be your student one, because you want to take it with you wherever you go. So after you graduate university or TAFE or whatever, you don't want all of your learning to disappear. You want to keep that for the rest of your life, because, you know, as Michael knows, when you start with one account and then have a different one and it gives you a separate number instead of linking them together, it can be a nightmare trying to get all of your certifications transferred to show on the one account. And I definitely did that as well. In fact, maybe it's just everyone whose name starts with M makes that vital mistake. Because, yeah, I definitely had the same trouble. Yes, so personal account to sign up with that, and then link your student account to it in the settings, in the profile settings. Cool. More free resources. This GitHub Student Developer Pack also has thousands and thousands of dollars of free software in there, including GitHub Copilot, which costs about $20 a month, 20 Australian dollars, 10 American, I think. So getting that for free is really worthwhile. That is just the most amazing thing, and it really helps me with my code every single day. What I most commonly have used it with this week is I write the code in my Visual Studio Code locally on my machine, and then I want to commit it to GitHub, but I don't want the keys to be in the code when I put it on GitHub. So I ask it to tell me how to set up an environment file, how to move my keys out of my code. so that when I commit it to GitHub, they're not there, and it helps me refactor the code so that it's more secure and those keys are hidden. It also then helps me, if it's possible for me to run it in the cloud entirely on Codespaces, it will tell me how to put the keys in a secrets thing on GitHub Codespaces in GitHub instead of on my machine or in an environment file. So it really helps me just sort of, like with those little things that you don't want to store in your head as to how you do those things all the time. You can just ask it. The other thing it helped me do was create a YouTube downloader, which was super, super easy. And it means I don't have to pay for YouTube Premium. I probably shouldn't say that out loud, but it is really useful. It also helped me this week to make a transcriber. So what it does is it takes my video, it converts the video into a sound file, and then it runs another file, which will then take the audio and transcribe it into words. And so that was pretty cool as well, because obviously there are some applications that do that for you. If you upload it to YouTube, you can get a transcription out of it. But if you don't want to upload stuff to YouTube all the time, you want to keep it personal, you want to have a transcriber, and it helped me do that with Azure speech services, which was really fun and really useful. So yes, definitely you need GitHub Copilot, get it for free within that GitHub Student Developer Pack. If you are not a student anymore, I think to me, that is the only thing worth buying. If you work for a big company, they might have it, so you could ask them, can they give it to you? But if you don't, I do think it's worth buying. I would buy it if Microsoft kicked me out. Here we go, Student Accelerator playlist. Also, you can sign up for our Facebook and LinkedIn groups to find out mostly about when the upcoming in-person events occur. Okie dokie, Afia, do you want to introduce yourself and tell them what you're going to share with them today?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Afia. I'm currently interning at Microsoft as a cloud solutions architect in the security team. I'm also still at uni. I'm doing my honours in software engineering at Monash, so I'm based in Melbourne. And I'll share my screen so I can get started with the presentation. Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what I wanted to talk to everyone about today is extracurriculars and why they're important. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I was thinking about it, and I think that I've always been someone who really loves to learn, but a lot of what I enjoyed about my university experience wasn't actually even in the classroom. It was a lot of things I did outside the classroom. So today I'll talk to you about some of those activities, and I'll talk about why extracurriculars are important, what tertiary institutions can offer you in terms of extracurriculars, other community activities and events you could do. I'll also talk about hackathons, and I'll talk about side projects, and I'll finish off by talking about a few things that I found could potentially go wrong and how you might manage them. So to start off with, why do extracurriculars matter? There's so many reasons, but I wanted to highlight a couple of the ones that mean the most to me. Firstly, you get to apply what you learned in class. So often we learn things in class that I think are quite theoretical, but then when you go and do a project or you go and do some extracurricular, you actually get an appreciation for how you use it in the real world and why that matters. And when you're doing that, you can also identify a lot of assumptions you made along the way that weren't obvious. Because I think when you're learning in class, you're often learning to do an exam. So you learn in a certain way. But when you're doing the project, you do it in the physical context. So that can illuminate new things for you. And on top of that, super excitingly, you get to learn so many new things. And this includes lots of new technical skills and critically, also a lot of soft skills, working with people, managing conflict, working in time constraints and resource constraints was a really big one for me. You get to develop all of that. You can also do a lot of networking. So, a lot of student societies often run their own networking nights or they have sponsors, and it's a great opportunity to talk to them, learn what their experiences are, and see what you could do in future. And also, you just get to make new friends, which is great, and you might actually go on to work with some of them, or you might not. But either way, making friends is good. And something that really resonates with me is that I feel like doing extracurriculars really helped me to carve out my own interests. I think that, especially when I started university, I was trying to do, I was always trying to do what I thought was the next best thing, whatever I perceived best to mean at the time. But when I did extracurriculars, I got a sense that I could be more deliberate about what I was doing with my time and do things that I found meaning in and that I really enjoyed. And I was able to develop that sense because I tried so many new things and found that, hey, I enjoy this thing. I really like when I do this thing. And if I hadn't done that, then I think that I sort of still would have been in a pattern of doing or applying for a range of things that maybe are really interesting, but I was doing because I felt like I had to in some way. So that was really important to me as well. And I want to share this quote with you all because I really like it by Dr. Barbara Oakley, who is a professor of engineering. And she also does a lot of work on learning how to learn well, which I'm really interested in. And in her TED Talk, she says to not just follow your passions, but to broaden them. And I share this with you all today because I think when I was, especially in high school, I had this sense that I needed to have a dream or a passion and one thing that really resonates with me that I was going to pursue in my life. But that can be a lot of pressure. It's really hard. What I found instead is that personally, I've always liked to have my feet in multiple buckets and be doing lots of different things that may or may not be related. And that's something I've really enjoyed. So I would absolutely encourage everyone to go and do things you're interested in and enjoy without always needing to regard what it means for you. So now I'll talk about the first sort of avenue for doing extracurricular activities. And for a lot of us, that's probably tertiary institutions. And I want to point out that I've noticed that there's a range of different extracurricular activities you can do. Firstly, there's a range of non-technical student teams, and I found that broadly they can be classed into teams that develop some kind of resources and events for particular student cohorts. So, for example, I know at my university there is a software engineering student society, or there's teams that contribute to social causes that you might want to be a part of because it's something you're really passionate about. And on the other hand, there's also technical student teams that are working to build and design some kind of technological solutions. Some of them are also participating in competitions, which is a really cool opportunity if that's something you're interested in. Something I've noticed about this sort of balance between non-technical and technical student teams is that I found a lot of students start off in some kind of non-technical team to develop their confidence and then move into a technical team. That is certainly a path you can take if that is what you want to do. There, I would say that non-technical teams have a range of benefits on their own. Um, you don't you don't need to use it as a stepping stone, which I feel like a lot of people do. Though you can, it's not a bad idea. And I also want to point out that there are lots of student teams outside your faculty. And so, for example, for me, most of the teams that I've been a part of are associated with the engineering faculty, but I've also been a part of some teams that are associated with the business and commerce faculties. And so I did a couple of consulting projects, which was a really interesting experience for me because I got to work on a whole lot of things that I otherwise wouldn't have. This can supplement your academic study, but it doesn't have to. Sometimes it's just fun to do things because you're interested in them. So I was a part of a book club. I used to do slam poetry. I also did some playwriting for my university and just doing a range of things that I wanted to do at the time. I also wanted to point out that there are a range of free TAFE courses you can do. I know that there's one in cybersecurity and one in information technology. If you are interested, the people I know who've done them have done them part-time across 12 to 24 months. And this can be a good way to get some kind of overview of things that you otherwise wouldn't have covered in class because it's already structured for you. The caveat to the TAFE courses, though, is that you do have to be an Australian citizen or permanent resident or a New Zealand citizen living in Australia to do them for free. So that's something to be aware of. The last thing I want to say about this is if you're not sure what your tertiary institution student teams are, they probably have a web page for it. Or if they don't, because I notice some universities don't, a great way to find out can be to go to their orientation week events. Usually they talk about them and promote them to students there, if that's something you're interested in. The next thing I want to talk about is a range of sort of organizations you could keep up with in the community. I really like doing this because not only do I come across a range of, I guess, opportunities and events and content that I otherwise wouldn't have, but it's also really inspiring to see all the good work that's being done. And so I'll tell you a bit about some of them. So uh, Bricks for Kids and RoboKids, they both run robotics workshops for school students. This is mostly focused around block coding, and they do take on student mentors. Some of those positions are paid, some of them are volunteer based. It's a great opportunity to do some teaching, practice actually explaining the content you've learnt in a really simple way, which is really good for your learning anyway. And it's also lots of fun working with the robots. I haven't worked with the RoboKids before, but I did work with Bricks for Kids for a while. And they gave us all the resources in terms of the content we needed to deliver, solutions. So it's really guided and they operate in various states. So definitely check if that's available to you. The next one I wanted to mention is Code Like a Girl. They do offer an intern matching program you can apply for, and they also have a virtual summit coming up next week if you are interested. I think they have a $20.
I'm still on the first slide. Are you moving slides?
Yes, it's working.
Yeah.
It's fine. I see all your logos.
You see them, and it's just me then. Okay. Carry on, don't let me interrupt.
Just to make sure, can everyone else see the logos? Yes, okay.
Yes, I can see.
Yeah. Yeah, so they have that virtual summit coming up, which can be a good networking opportunity if you're interested. I also wanted to talk about the Australian Women in Security Network. A lot of their work I find is more targeted toward professionals, but they have a range of free webinars and other events that can be a great learning opportunity if you're interested. Tech Leading Ladies is similar, more targeted towards professionals, but they also run free monthly meetups that also operate virtually. I think the next one is on creative problem solving. So if they're delivering some content you're interested in, it's worth having a watch. And then there's a range of organizations like Girl Geek Academy, Code Camp, She Codes. They all provide some kind of coding workshop to students, and they take on usually university students to be mentors. Again, curriculum and solutions are typically provided. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely worth looking into. I also want to point out Engineers Without Borders. They do a lot of events related to humanitarian engineering, including hackathons and other range of things. Typically, they are associated with universities, but you can also sign up to volunteer at a state or national level. If you check their website, they often have some kind of postings open. I also quickly want to talk about ASAR, which is the Australia Information Security Association. Again, a bit more targeted toward professionals, I feel, but I found that they do encourage students to sign up as volunteers to help with their conference, which is coming up in November. That is something I did recently, and I also found out that you may be entitled to a free membership through your university. So definitely worth checking out. And lastly, Engineers Australia. They are the national body for engineering, which you may be interested in if you're a software engineering student too. They host a range of networking events you could attend. They have a job board, and you can also volunteer to host their stalls if that's something you're interested in. I'll go on to the next point now, which is about hackathons. Hackathons can be so much fun, and I wanted to share a few things that I've sort of come to reflect on about hackathons. Firstly, the hackathons I enjoyed the most were the ones where there was some kind of mentoring and training. I've done hackathons before where they even had training about the particular content that the hackathon related to, which was really useful for me because I was really nervous otherwise, and I had a lot of fun doing that. So that's something to look out for. I'd also say if you're going to do a hackathon, don't be afraid to sign up on your own. I found most of them usually have a system of pairing together people who've signed up on their own. So it's really not a big issue. And if you do know your team beforehand, if you can, definitely recommend preparing your environment beforehand, and do use code templates, app starter kits. You don't have to build from the ground up. It is okay. Having said that, challenge yourself to use new technology. I think that is sort of the big purpose of hackathons in a way. If you get exposed to something new, you can go look at it more yourself later, and that's a great experience to have. Also, practice pitching and get feedback. Don't skimp on this. Ultimately, if you've built a great product, if you can't communicate that well, it's not super valuable. And also, stay connected with the people you meet, with your mentors, with your team members. It can be really helpful going forward, and it's nice to maintain those relationships. I do have a link at the bottom right where I keep up with hackathons that are coming up. I've personally done the Sydney University Humanitarian Innovation Hackathon a couple of times. I really like that one. And I've also done the Engineers Without Borders hackathon a couple of times because I really enjoy that one too. But there's heaps there you can look into. And if you're interested, you could be a mentor yourself, which is another option. I also want to quickly talk about side projects. Everyone says you should build something you're interested in. I feel like when I started, I did not know what I was interested in. That was really hard. So I put some links there where you can look at a bunch of project ideas to help you get started. The other thing I did when I started with side projects is I followed walkthroughs. I personally found that when I was doing something new and I had no idea what to do, it was really debilitating for me. Being able to go through walkthroughs to start with really helped me to build my confidence so that I could then later go and approach challenges that I was more unsure about without the walkthrough. Once I was sort of okay with the walkthroughs, I moved on to more step-by-step guides. I found the Cloud Resume Challenge was a really good sort of example of that. It essentially gets you to code your resume and host it on the cloud, which is really good learning because I think most of us don't really learn too much about the cloud at university. And I also want to say, if you don't know where to start, I recommend understanding the architecture of your system, what the key components are, and how they interact. I found a lot of my confusion is coming from that, the misunderstanding. You can also examine how similar systems are built and specify your key features and work backwards. I found that a lot more useful than going the other way, because the other way is a lot more elusive. If you start with, okay, I need to have a title here, then you can go and find out how to do that. If you start with, I need to build a web page, then that's a whole rabbit hole, and that can get really complicated. I very quickly will mention open source projects as well. This can be a good way to get into projects without taking on too much complexity. Firstly, you want to make sure that the project you're working on is trustworthy, and you mostly want to make sure it has an open source license. You also want to make sure that it does have an active community, so you are supported when you're doing your work. Once you've vetted it and you make sure it's a good project for you to do, go through the README file, go through any tutorials, sample output, understand what the project is doing, and then simple steps you can take to start contributing include elaborating on the README, resolving any open issues, and improving the folder structure. I have put a couple of links at the bottom right that take you through a few guides and also some sort of beginner-friendly open source projects you could contribute to if you are interested. I'll finish off by saying that sometimes when you're doing these things because it's new, you might feel like it's really challenging and you don't know what to do. I would say discomfort is really normal. I found that with coding, when I started, I felt like coding was the end goal, but I found that it's really not. A lot of the work in coding happens before you've actually coded anything. A lot of the time is spent planning how to build a good system that is reliable, and so do those things that will help you to think about the architecture of your systems before you build them. Try doing test-driven development, set up those CI/CD pipelines, and develop your debugging skills too. I used to feel so afraid to read error messages, but you should read them and you should search them up and understand what they mean. Don't sort of look at the red and jump away. I also found that sometimes when student teams, time and resource constraints meant that I couldn't do all the things I wanted to do, and I found it really disheartening. But I feel like there's still inherent value in the ideas you come up with, even if they're not realistic in the time frame you have. Do what you can and don't neglect what you can't. You can still document the idea and move on. Finally, you might experience some teamwork challenges. If you do, you should voice them. Share that I think the team could be doing this thing differently. I think this dynamic isn't working well for us. But also, sometimes I do think you have to know when you're playing a losing game. Ultimately, as a student, there is only so much you can do. And you may have to compromise on what your ideals are in terms of working in a team. But that's sort of how teamwork goes. That is okay. And that's all from me. me. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I am happy to take any questions. I'm sorry I went a little bit over time.
We have to let them jump to the next call. That starts exactly now. But if anyone is not going into the next call and would like to stay and ask Afia questions, then she'll hang around on this call. I have to jump to the next one to open that up for you all. So stay if you can. Otherwise, I'll see you in the other one. But thanks, Afia. That was marvellous.
Did a good job. Great talk.
Thank you.
No worries. So dark.
Yeah, if anyone does have questions, I'm happy to answer, or we can just head up.
I have a question. How do you manage your time with the uni work and also this extracurricular activities? I think that's a lot.
That's a really good question. I will point out it's not like I was doing all of these things at the same time. These are sort of things that I did sometimes throughout my university experience. Doing it all at once would certainly be a lot of work, and I wouldn't recommend it. You probably wouldn't have enough time to really process everything in a meaningful way if you were trying to do that anyway. So, for example, when I was in my first year and I was very new to everything, all I was doing was I had joined one student team. Sorry, just a moment. I think the recording will be on YouTube later, so you will be able to see it there, Marie. And sorry, back to your question. I had only joined just one student team. I was helping them run some workshops maybe once or twice a month, and I did one project that all it was really doing was generating an email based on some details that a user inputted. So it's not a lot of work, but as I built my skills, I was more able to do things. And a lot of the things I said, they're like, a hackathon is an event. You do it for the weekend and then it's done. It's not an ongoing effort. So you might need to do some planning beforehand. Okay, I have this assignment coming up the week after. I don't have the weekend, so I need to do it before. But it is a one-off. So I think if you're interested, you can definitely make it work for your schedule. With side projects as well, you can pretty much do it however you want. I think how I did most of mine was I would try to do a feature a week, which I found more manageable, especially because when I'm learning new things, I just felt so nervous, and that slowed me down on its own. But yeah, I hope that somewhat helps. I wasn't doing all of this at one time.
Can I add a
think
little bit?
that helps. Yeah. Thanks. That was a really good presentation. I learned a lot. Good info.
I'm so glad.
With learning as well, you don't have to it doesn't have to be a job. It could be fun. Like if you actually find something you're interested in, then that can be your recreational time. Like a lot of people in IT, their hobby turns into their passion, which turns into their job, right? So they get all this accelerated learning just because they're having fun. And so if that's if there's an area where you're excited, then instead of scrolling TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or whatever it is, spend that time learning about what you're interested in, and your downtime, and then you're kind of getting that fun as well as getting the thing. I mean, I know that like my whole life revolved around computers when I was much younger than I am now, but it was like a hobby which turned into the job. So yeah. And all of the best security people I know and all of the best coders I know, they code because they love it, not because their job pays them to do it. Yeah.
Kevin, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, that was a great presentation. I have a question about, I guess, how you got your internship. Did you do any projects prior to your internship application? And if you did, could you share like one or two of them?
So I definitely did projects prior to my internship application. I didn't specifically do them for the application, but so I'll tell you what I did. One of the projects that I worked on was a data sensitivity scanner. The reason I worked on that project was because at the placement I did before this, the project I worked on was about sensitivity scanning. And that was really interesting to me. And so I wanted to know sort of how that system worked. But what I do want to say is that I did write down I did that project on my resume, but in the interview, I don't think I really talked about. I don't think I actually talked about any of the projects I did individually. I just, I wasn't really, I was asked about projects. I didn't actually opt to speak about that. I mostly spoke about what I did at work. That was a coincidence, though. What I mean to say is most of what I was asked was about if this happened, what would you do? It was more sort of theoretical. So I'm saying that because don't feel like you have to go and do so many projects for your interview. That's not the feeling I got. The questions that I was asked were more about soft skills and how I would respond in particular situations. So absolutely go and do projects about things you're interested in, but with that caveat. Is
So
that
basically,
helpful?
yeah, so basically, I guess put projects that you've already done that not related to whatever you're applying for, and anything that I guess interests you, but I guess don't like focus on it too much. I guess is probably what I'm getting out of that.
If you've done something related, I think you should definitely put it down. Don't not put it down. All
Yeah.
I'm trying to say is that, so with this role, when it said cloud solutions architect, I hadn't really even worked with the cloud before, not really. So I felt like I didn't have anything that was super related, and I'm new to security, but you know, the projects that I've done, I think I still have a lot of transferable skills. Things like um, things like being creative, being able to solve a problem. That applies to anything you ever work on. That's what I'm saying. If you've done something relevant and you know that, oh, I want to work in security so I'm going to go and do security related projects, that's fantastic. But it may not happen, and that's okay. That's all I was trying to say. Yeah.
Having the project there means that you can talk about it. And if it was one that you had fun doing, the way you talk about it will different and it will be different and it will really share your personality. So like when Afia is talking now, she lights up. And that's the sort of thing that people in interviews want to see when you're talking about something with a bit of passion and enthusiasm, because that's the energy people want in their teams, right? Like if you're talking about something that you felt sort of whipped to do, then you're not going to be excited to talk about it. And then they're going to be like, well, this isn't an enthusiastic person, right? So there's lots of little things. So yeah, I need to drop off for my next meeting, but it's been nice to meet you all. Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah. Yeah, I hope those answers are helpful. If you want to
No,
ask
it's
me
helpful.
anything else, I have time. So I'm happy to talk about it.
Well, I guess if you have time, how many, I guess, places you applied for? Is this your first internship?
No, so this is actually my third internship. I did 2 before. One of them was arranged through my university, so they have an IBL program, and how it works is we do a range of interviews with our IT faculty's partners, and hopefully you get placed. That's the idea. Most people do get placed. So that's the placement where I worked on the sensitivity scanning, which was pretty cool. Before that, I also did a research placement at an immunology lab. And that was through CSIRO. So I applied online, and yeah, I was able to work on some data modeling for 6 months, which was really cool. So I've done a couple of different ones to this point.